Hello again. I hope you all are enjoying AbleCon so far. Welcome to those who are joining us for the first time. Our next section here will be talking about Able and Social Security, probably one of the most requested and presentations we get asked for all the time. And I'm very lucky to have with us Tina Louise Williams, who is a public affairs specialist at the Social Security Administration. She's based out of Jacksonville, if I'm correct. Isn't that right, Tina?
Yes, sir. I'm here in Jacksonville, Florida.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for spending some of your time with us as we talk about ABLE accounts and Social Security. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to you to present on this, and we'll have some time at the end to tackle some of your most frequently asked questions. So, Tina,
Beautiful.
take
Thank
it
you so
away.
much. All right. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Bear with me for just a minute. Again, thank you all for having me this afternoon. Again, my name is Tina Williams, and I'm a public affairs specialist with the Social Security Administration. Today, I want to talk about Social Security and who pays for Social Security. Now, the Social Security Administration is an independent agency of the U.S. federal government that assigns Social Security numbers and administers Social Security retirement, disability, SSDI, and survivor benefits. Our program is funded from mandatory contributions from employers, employees, and the self employed. Through the pooling of mandatory contributions from workers, our program pays out benefits to those who are eligible for them. Employers and employees each pay 6.2% of wages up to the taxable maximum amount for this year in 2023 of 160,200, while the self-employed pay 12.4%. Now our agency also administers the Supplemental Security SSI program for the aged, blind, and disabled. Now, SSDI provides benefits to disabled or blind persons who are insured by workers' contributions to the Social Security Trust Fund. These contributions are based on your earnings or those of your spouse or parents as required by the Federal Insurance Contributions Act, FICA. Title II of the Social Security Act authorizes SSDI benefits. Your dependents may also be eligible for benefits from your earnings record. SSI is Supplemental Security Income. This program makes cash assistance payments to aged, blind, and disabled persons, including children who have limited income and resources. The federal government funds SSI from general tax revenues. Title 16 of the Social Security Act authorizes SSI benefits. For 2023, the federal benefit rate is $914 for an individual and $1371 for a couple. Now, certain members of your family may qualify for benefits based on your work. They include your spouse, if the spouse is age 62 or older, your spouse at any age, if the spouse is caring for a child of yours who is younger than the age of 16 or disabled, divorced widow or disabled surviving divorced spouse age 50 to 59 who meets the other requirements for entitlement to widow insurance benefits. So that marriage must last 10 years and meets the definition of disability for disabled workers. Your unmarried child, including an adopted child, or in some cases, a stepchild or a grandchild. Now, the child must be younger than the age of 18, or if still in high school, 19 and 2 months. In some situations, a divorced spouse may qualify for benefits based on your earnings if the person was married to you for at least 10 years, is not currently married, and is at least age 62. The money paid to a divorced spouse doesn't reduce your benefit or any benefits due to your current spouse or children. For SSI, if you are disabled and do not have enough credits to qualify for SSDI and you have limited income and resources, you may be eligible for SSI. Remember, SSI is a federal income supplement program funded by general tax revenues, not Social Security taxes. If you are disabled, but do not have enough credits to qualify for SSDI, and you have limited income and resources, you may be eligible for SSI. Now, SSI is a federal income supplement program funded by general tax revenues, not Social Security taxes. Social Security administers the SSI program, which pays monthly benefits to adults with limited income and resources who are disabled, blind, or age 65 or older. People who have worked long enough, recently enough, may be able to receive Social Security benefits such as disability or retirement and SSI benefits at the same time if the amount of Social Security benefits in combination with a person's other income falls below the SSI income limits. So what impact does ABLE have for a Title II beneficiary and for an SSI recipient? For Title II beneficiaries, ABLE accounts have no impact on eligibility or the benefit amount. For Title 16 recipients, since SSI is a means tested, ABLE accounts, ABLE account balances, and the distributions are considered in determining eligibility for SSI. Next, I would like to provide an overview of SSI programs for ABLE accounts. What we exclude from ABLE account balances, contributions, and distributions, what we count in ABLE account balances and distributions, suspensions of SSI benefits when an ABLE account exceeds $100,000, and then the special Medicaid rules. Now, along or with other resources, the recipient is ineligible for SSI and benefits will be suspended. However, the recipient will still be eligible for Medicaid. In this example, Paul is a designated beneficiary of an ABLE account with an account balance of $101,000 on the first of the month. Paul's other countable resources is in his checking account with a balance of $1,500. So Paul's countable resources are $2,500 and therefore exceeds the SSI resource limit of $2,000. However, since Paul's ABLE account balances causes him to exceed the resource limit, his countable resources other than the ABLE account are less than $2,000, SSI would be suspended. But he would still retain his Medicaid eligibility. Now, contributions to an ABLE account can come from any source and that are not considered income to an SSI recipient. However, an SSI's recipient's earnings contributed to an ABLE account are considered wages and countable even if contributions are made by payroll deductions. Gifts to an SSI recipient can be deposited into an ABLE account, are considered income, but are considered income to the recipient in the month received. Gift deposited directly into an ABLE account are not counted as income. Distributions from ABLE accounts are not income in the designated beneficiary, regardless of whether the distributions are for a qualified disability expense, a housing related QDE, a non-housing related QDE, or a non-qualified expense. Now, ABLE account funds can be used for qualified disability-related expense, that QDE, and a QDE is any expense the beneficiary incurs as a result of the disability. These may include expenses related to education, housing, transportation, employment training and support, assistive technology, personal support devices, healthcare expenses, financial management, and administrative services, and other expenses that help improve health, independence, and quality of life. Housing expenses for the purpose of ABLE account are similar to household costs for in-kind support and maintenance purposes. Housing expenses include expenses for mortgage including property insurance required by the mortgage holder, real property taxes, rent, heating, fuel, gas, electricity, water, sewer, and garbage removal. Now, for ABLE purposes, food is considered a qualified disability expense, basic living expense, but not a housing expense. Now, SSA would exclude a distribution from a QDE not related to housing from the designated beneficiary's countable resources if he or she retains it beyond the month received. This exclusion applies while the designated beneficiary maintains and makes contributions to or receives distributions from the ABLE account, the distribution is unspent, the distribution is identifiable, and the individual still intends to use the distribution for a non-housing qualified expense, disability expense. Distribution from ABLE accounts retain distributions for housing-related QDZs or expenses that are not QDEs. SSA will count distributions for housing-related QDE or for an expense that is not a QDD as a resource if the beneficiary retains the distribution into the month following the month of receipt. We count previously excluded distributions used for a non-qualified purpose or housing-related QDE as a resource at the early of the month spent or the month intent changed. In this example, SSA would exclude a distribution for a QDE not related to housing from the designated beneficiary's countable resources if he or she retains it beyond the month received. For non-housing QDE, Elizabeth takes a distribution of $500 from her ABLE account in May to pay for a health-related QDE that she expects to pay in September. She deposits the distribution into her checking account in May and withdraws it in September to pay the health-related QDE. SSA would exclude that $500 from the countable resources from June through September. In this next example, SSA will count a distribution from a housing expense or for expense that is not a QDE as a resource if the designated beneficiary retains the distribution in the month following the month of receipt. So if the housing-related QDE, Amy takes a distribution of $500 from her ABLE account in May to pay a housing expense for June. She deposits the money into her checking account in May, withdraws the $500 in cash on June the 3rd, and pays her landlord. Because that money was in her account on June the 1st, we are going to count it as a resource for the month of June. If a designated beneficiary uses a distribution previously excluded for a non-QDE expense or a housing expense, or the individual's intent to use it for a QDE not related to housing changes, SSA will count the amount of funds used for the non-QDE or housing expense as a resource as of the first moment of the month in which the funds were spent if the designated beneficiary uses the distribution that was previously excluded for a non-QDE purpose or a housing expense. In this example, Sam takes a distribution of $25,000 from his ABLE account in May for an assisted technology and related service. He pays a $10,000 deposit. While waiting for the service to be completed, Sam takes a trip to the local casino in July where he loses $1,000 of his ABLE distribution gambling. The $1,000 he lost in gambling is a countable resource in July. The other $14,000 Sam retains is excluded resource while it meets the requirements in this section. Another example is in June, Jennifer takes $7,000 distribution from her ABLE account to pay an educational expense that is QDE. Her educational expense is due in September. However, she has to make a $750 advance rent payment to her landlord for her college apartment in August. She uses some of the distribution she took in June to make the rental payment a housing expense. The $750 is a countable resource in August. SSA will exclude the remaining $6,250 of the retained distribution when it continues to meet the requirements in this section. Now, how SSA will use the data reported by the state. So since October 1st, 2017, most states report to us the first of the month the account balances and the prior month's distribution information for all ABLE accounts in their program. SSA will record all ABLE accounts and balances information in our web-based SSI claims system. We SSI will compute the resource balances and will determine whether or not the SSI benefits will be suspended. This will not affect Title II beneficiaries, and this does not affect the eligibility for eligibility certification for eligible individuals. Now, we have a host of information that is on our website. We do offer our program's operations manual. We have our SSI spotlights. There is a beautiful hyperlink that is on there. The spotlights gives a detailed look at some of the program rules that are also found in our Understanding SSI. I'm going to turn it back over to you, John.
Tina, thank you so much. I know that was a mouthful. It's a little nuanced, right? When it comes to understanding how ABLE accounts work with supplemental security income. But I want to just go back and highlight really that program operations manual system. And can you tell us a little bit on, how that sheds lights on ABLE accounts?
So our POMS, which is our Program's Operations Manual, is a primary source of information used by Social Security employees to process claims for Social Security benefits. The public version of POMS is identical to the version used by Social Security employees, except that it does not include internal data entry and sensitive content instructions.
That's wonderful. And I usually tell individuals, if you're watching this, if you're contemplating about opening an ABLE account and you're on supplemental security income benefits, so the SSI portion, Title 16, really encourage individuals to check out the POMS manual because I think all the examples we provided are in there, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's a great place to go. And I know you spent a lot of your time talking about housing because one of the primary purposes of SSI is to pay for housing, correct?
That is correct.
Right. And so knowing that it does count as a qualified disability expense, but it's really the retaining, right? For the most part, when somebody retains the funds from an ABLE account past the end of the month for housing, that's when it really gets it could count as a resource, correct?
That is correct. So the moment of the first moment of the month, we will count it as a resource. So if you're pulling that distribution from that ABLE account, let's just say, for example, in the month of May, we hope that you would spend it in the month of May. Otherwise, if you have it in June, the first moment of June is going to be held as a resource.
Yeah. And so, I know for ABLE United and most all the other ABLE programs around the country, we stress saying, hey, if you're paying housing related expenses, just have the ABLE account pay that expense directly. We have it to where you can cut a check. I know our program has systematic distribution, so you can actually get that set up to where the check just comes out automatically and you don't have to worry about it being retained in a bank account where it may jeopardize or count as a resource for SSI. So thinking about other qualified disability expenses, for the most part, Social Security Administration really is only looking at the retained funds, correct?
That is correct.
Right. So it's having the purpose, I guess, on what those funds are going to be used for. And I know a lot of the examples talked about, whether it be for education. Mm-hmm. And so there shouldn't be really a fear of people using their ABLE accounts.
No.
Because we do have a lot of questions like, is this qualified? Is this qualified? Mm-hmm. Now we're going to switch a little bit talking about employment, because I know that's another big thing we hear from individuals, because really, ideally everybody be employed and make significant funds and they wouldn't have to rely on SSI. And so thinking about just employment, can you speak to what happens if an individual says, "Hey, I'm going to direct deposit my paycheck into an ABLE account"? Does Social Security still count that as income?
Yes, Social Security counts as an income. Yeah, if it's coming direct deposit from your employer into the account, we are going to count that as income.
And that's important to know because at the end of the day, ABLE account shelter resources, not necessarily income. So you can't say, "Oh, I'm just going to deposit my check in the ABLE account and then I could disregard counting measures for Social Security." That's not how that works.
That's correct.
All right. So I'm going to look at some of the questions that we've had come in here. And I do want to point out when it does come to employment, one thing that is unique is individuals working and not saving for retirement can actually contribute more than the annual contribution limit of 17,000. So that month it changes each year based on the federal poverty limit of a single household income. So this year it's up to 13,590. So
Mm.
there may be opportunities if individuals are working, not saving for retirement, could actually utilize their ABLE account like that, like a retirement account. Going down here, I see one of these questions we get all the time is, okay, let's say I'm employed somewhere, I'm working minimal hours, unfortunately, and I have a 401k or some kind of employee-sponsored retirement program. Does Social Security Administration count that retirement account as a resource?
For the SSDI side, that Title II side, we're not going to, it has no impact on ABLE. For the SSI side, it's when you first become eligible for it that may affect your SSI benefits. Yes.
Oh, so it's when you're eligible to
Yes,
take
sir.
distribution.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good to know.
Mm-hmm.
Now another question I see that's popped up here is I serve as a representative payee for my child or my adult child, and I have leftover SSI funds or SSDI funds. Can I deposit those into an ABLE account?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. That can be direct deposit into that ABLE account. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. And just as a little sneak peek here behind the the curtain, I guess is what they say. We're working with our records administration program company, Vestwell. If you logged into your account, you might have seen Vestwell. Currently still Someday, but eventually changing over to Vestwell. But one of the things we're hopefully implementing is the ability to have Social Security funds directly deposited into the ABLE account. So that would be a huge win for a lot of individuals who are worried. Maybe they always have leftover and they're constantly trying to spend down resources. Then they can just make their ABLE account be the recipient of those funds directly. So that's something hopefully we'll be rolling out in the summer, early summer this year. I know you touched on reporting, Tina. I want to bring this back up.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say an individual, they're on SSI, not SSDI, because SSDI, when it comes to SSDI and ABLE accounts, Social Security is really not looking after those accounts, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. More so the SSI side.
Yeah, exactly, right. So we talk about reporting, right? Because I know SSI, there's annual reporting. Let's say I'm in the middle of the year and I just received SSI for the first time and I have an ABLE account. How can somebody report? Like, should it be up to them to be a little more proactive and letting Social Security know?
Yes. So we ask that if there's any changes, whether it's a living arrangements, new bank accounts, a new munchkin baby, that you report to us within 10 days. We definitely want to add, especially with an ABLE account, we definitely want to add that to our SSI claims path to make certain that if we do get a data exchange from the state, that matches the record. So yes, we do encourage for individuals to be proactive and let us know within 10 days. Mm-hmm.
Great. And the best way to get a hold of their office is, I'm assuming Social Security has multiple websites. What is it? Just like their local office is probably the best bet to go?
The local office, I would recommend you build a relationship with your caseworker, and they, of course, know the path to go ahead and enter that information in. So yes, the local field office would be your best bet. I believe that if an individual contacts the 1-800 line, sometimes they may not have access to get into that particular claims path. So it's best that the individual contact the local field office.
That's great. Here's another question I see that we
Mhm.
get quite a bit is, how do I know if I'm on SSI or SSDI or both?
That is a good question. So
I'm assuming if they call their local office or their counselor, they might be able to get a little more guidance.
yes, and um, oh gosh, oh John, you got me there.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
because I know. So when I used to take claims, it was just like if you knew based on your social security number and there was a DI behind it,
Hmm.
we knew that was SSI. If we
Correct.
knew it was if it was an A behind your name, behind your social, or a C1, then we knew that was from the other program. So now that we've changed how the numbers are looking in on those notices,
Yes.
I ha- those B and C numbers, I'm just like, okay, is that the SSI program or is that the other program? Those notices I'm still kind of getting used to because
Okay.
we removed the social security numbers from those notices, and that's how I was able to to
Okay.
determine.
Yeah, because I
So
know we get quite a bit of questions, especially when, for example, if a parent retires, and then the child might be eligible for benefits based on that parent's,
then we
and
know
that
that that was going to be the Title II side.
yeah,
Yeah, because
exactly.
they're
Yeah,
getting a
so I
parent's work. Yeah.
yeah, that or the amount. Sometimes individuals would be like, well, they're getting 1,100 a month. I'm like, well, that's not SSI.
Yes, exactly.
Because it's that threshold of up to 914, I believe, this year.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is because I know we give, if the person is receiving both, if they're getting Title II and Title 16, we know that the federal benefit rate for right now is 914. If you see that the person is getting 934, we give them, it's for both programs, but we give them an additional $20.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
see,
yeah.
I
So
know.
if it's 914 and then the $20, then we know that they're getting both programs. But if it's
Interesting.
over that, then we know it's strictly on the other program. I'm very like all over the place.
It's totally understandable. All right, so let's see if I have time for one more question here. This is a question. It doesn't really apply to you so much, but it has to do with Medicaid, right? Because
Mhm,
really, Medicaid is usually reserved for individuals that are meet the SSI requirements,
mhm.
and so uh, the question specifically is, can I have an ABLE account and not worry about jeopardizing my Medicaid benefits? And so Medicaid's totally separate. And so some of the SSI rules don't necessarily apply to Medicaid. So, for example, the $100,000 is the first one that comes to my mind. Is that here in Florida, these accounts can actually grow up to 418,000 before individuals can no longer contribute to them. At that point, they can continue to grow tax free. Um, the Medicaid concern is more what happens to the funds in the account when the beneficiary passes. And at that point, it would go most likely to the estate of the beneficiary after all qualified disability expenses are
Are
paid.
paid. Yes.
Yeah, including funeral and burial. And then that estate may be subject to Medicaid recovery if they're over the age of 55. So it's funny how all these different programs have different ages for different things. Um,
Yes, because I was reading for you guys, it was under the age of 26 for an
correct,
able.
correct.
Mhm.
And that's
And
going up to age 46 though, in
uh,
2026. So,
okay, okay.
yeah. So that got passed, and then hopefully, we'll be doing AbleCon of that year. So stay tuned. But we'll be doing a big ramp up as we expand that age, and hopefully we'll get a broader range of individuals with disabilities who just get diagnosed later in life. So
Yes,
whether that
yes.
be multiple sclerosis or mental health diagnoses or
Hmm.
PTSD, or even some of our military who don't get an actual diagnosis until they leave the military. So,
Hmm.
all right, Taylor, we have time for one more question here. I see this is a question. Oh, this does come up a lot, especially when we're doing in-person events and we start talking about Social Security. Is when should I apply? When should I either apply for SSI specifically benefits? Because we know SSDI, that's more of an earned benefit. So somebody's working, setting up for retirement, that's a different conversation. But let's say we have a family, a child, or a soon-to-be adult. We get the question, when should I apply for supplemental security income?
So the key thing for this example is if a child is about to turn 18, um, and they're already on SSI or they've never been on SSI. If they've never been on SSI, we want to go ahead and file as soon as possible, as soon as we learn that there is a disability. If the child is reaching age 18 and has never filed for disability, um, our system is kind of wonky. If the child hasn't turned 18 just yet, so they turn 18 next month, SSA will take the application, but the application is going to look like it's a child under the age of 18 the month before. So the month of is when we want to take the application as an
Okay.
adult. Yeah. So it's a little, but yes, as soon as they determine or they are deemed disabled and they have medical records, go ahead and give us a call. We could take the application over the phone, or you can file online, which we would love to have it file online. There is an application process that you go through, which is at ssa.gov. You can take your time filling out that application. Once it's submitted, it's going to be submitted to the local field office, and that representative is going to reach out to that individual to complete that claim. The one thing I do want to mention, if you're filing for a child is unable to speak, we still have to reach out to that child and get their permission. Technically they're an adult, um, to speak to you and to finish that claim. Um, but yes, ssa.gov, and we're looking for to file for disability on that website.
That's great. And so if people need help finding their local office or where to apply, what is the best website to go to get them the resources they need?
Great question. And of course, it's going to be ssa.gov/locator. If you put in your zip code into that little locator, it's going to pull up that servicing office and it's going to have that direct telephone number for that servicing office and that address, as well as a good fax number if you needed to fax documents. One thing I want to mention about faxing documents to any Social Security office, please, please, please put your Social Security number on there so we can identify who you are. We've
To
had
get
so many documents that are coming to the office, like pay stubs, and I'm pretty certain there's so many John Williams out there, John,
yeah.
that we just want to make certain we have that Social Security number for that right person to apply that information to that particular record.
Awesome. That's great. Well, Tina, thank you again so much for your time today. If we didn't get to your question, we have people behind the scenes that'll be working their best to get all those questions answered to you and maybe even reach out to you after a short time. So, with that, remember all these sessions are going to be recorded and available afterwards. We'll also be posting it on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Able United. That's where you will find us. Before we go, Tina, once again, thank you so much for your time and your expertise. I know this is one of the presentations we get a lot of questions about. So thank you so much for your time.
Really my pleasure. Thank you.
Great. We're going to go ahead and take another 5-minute break before we end up with our final session on guardianship. See you soon.